and it literally was a table like we're sitting at here, and a kitchen table, and my goalie, my left wing, right defenseman, all threw $100, literally threw $100 on the table. It looked like we were playing poker, and they looked at me and said, "You're a CPA, figure out how to be a 501c3." And we then literally put a tournament on 3 months later. And it was that first tournament, believe it or not, raised $24,000, and it had some things in it were amazing. Like today, I don't even know what it would go for, but we had a game-used signed Alex Ovechkin helmet in that. Like really amazing stuff happened right off the bat, and we were able to help 3 families at that, and that Dawg Bowl has just grown and grown and grown, and as far as now, it's really too big. We have to cap it pretty early, and it'll sell out within a couple of days. And this year, we thought originally, boy, if this thing made $100,000, it'd be pretty amazing. And last year, we thought, boy, it can't do much better than that, and it did $225,000.
Welcome to episode 67 of People Are the Answer. I truly believe that people are the only answer to the world's many problems. I'm Jeffrey M. Zucker, a serial entrepreneur, here to learn how innovators are creating outsized, transformational social impact and to shine a light on all the good happening in a world often hyper-focused on the negative. Today's episode features my friend Martin Richardson, founder and president of Dawg Nation Hockey Foundation, which serves to help the hockey community help members in need. The organization was founded in 2011, and the frequency at which I've seen recipients of their help later come back to volunteer says a lot about what a special group they are. Marty and I discuss his career as a controller and CPA, how Dawg Nation started, what led him to dedicate himself to the org full-time 5 years ago, his college soccer career, building an accessible ice rink, and much more. We even dig into my own passion for hockey, its influence on my life, and my ongoing work with his organization. Today's episode is also our first in-person video recording, so check it out on YouTube if you're interested in seeing it. Here is Martin Richardson on People Are the Answer. Marty, thanks so much for joining me on People Are the Answer. This is our first in-person video recording, so thank you for being the guinea pig.
Yeah, it's quite an honor. I can't believe it that you choose me to be the first guy out here, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously we know each other well, met through the hockey community within the last few years, and so let's start off though by helping the audience get to know you. Who are you, where are you based, and what's your current role?
Yeah, so I got lots of current roles, but grew up here in Colorado and was a soccer player, really not a hockey guy. Loved hockey. It was my favorite sport, but it was out of our price range for my family, and I was a good enough soccer player to end up playing college soccer and a little semi-pro after that, but paid for my schooling, which was pretty cool. But at the end of the day, I always had this burning passion for hockey, and I went to school for accounting, and ended up becoming a CPA, working the corporate slug role there, and started playing beer league hockey like you do.
Yeah.
And so that turned into this crazy thing called Dawg Nation Hockey Foundation, which we're going to talk about today.
Excited to dig in. So, you currently are operating as the president, right, of Dawg Nation?
Yeah. They call all kinds of roles: Cappy, the dog father, the president, the CEO, the founder.
Yep.
But they all work.
Yeah, lots of fun ones, and we'll definitely dig deeper into Dawg Nation specifically, but what would you say generally motivates you in life?
Oh my goodness. I think the biggest thing for me is being able to help those that need help. I mean, I just get off on it. Like when I am sitting with someone when they're in their kind of their darkest, most difficult times, and with this group that we built, and there's literally hundreds if not thousands of people, including yourself, that have built this thing where we can literally go and change lives, and when you, especially, the main thing is that the money's one thing, but when people realize that there's people behind them and they're not alone, you just watch that weight come off of their shoulders, and they'll fight harder, and they'll not always win, but it creates these incredible moments, and they're honestly priceless.
So where did you grow up, and what was that like?
So a lot of people know this, but not all. I was actually born in England, and my mother's kind of a crazy story too. She was, both my parents were born during World War II, one in England, one in Germany, and I know you know this story because you have similar backgrounds to me in that. We talked about this early on, but my mother actually grew up in communism, was a tremendous athlete herself, but her parents were kind of against the Communist Party, which was basically a death blow for her. So at age 18, she couldn't tell her parents, but she escaped East Germany. It was a couple of years before the Berlin Wall went up, and ended up ending in England, and met my dad, and which was kind of a little bit taboo with a German person marrying an English person at that time period, and had 2 boys over in England, my brother and myself, and my dad figured a better place for us to live was in North America, and so moved first to Canada, to Victoria, and then ended up in the States, first in San Diego and then in Denver. And but I really call Colorado my home because I moved here when I was only 6 years old, and really all of my schooling, my university, all of my jobs. I've never lived anywhere else adult-wise. Been places, of course, but never lived anywhere but Colorado. So I consider that's who I am. That's where it kind of came from.
Yeah, no, I love that. And so you got to Colorado, where we are now, and around age 6, I believe you grew up in Golden mostly?
I did, yeah. And
what was childhood like here?
Yeah, so we were definitely a blue-collar family, kind of on the lower income side. We were typical European family where the mother stayed home and the dad worked construction as a pipe fitter. So money was never in abundance in our household, but love was. And so me and my 2 brothers had an amazing, great childhood with back in the day where you were kicked out of your house when the sun came up, and you were home when the sun went down. And kind of figured that. So for me, that was a magical childhood. And I still have some of the kids that I grew up with on that same street. I still know today, and they're even clients of mine. Believe it or not. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That is awesome, and I love to hear that. Definitely seems like a good place to grow up.
Yeah.
Hope to raise my kids here.
Yeah.
So, when I talk to people that spend most of their day giving back, I wonder, back to childhood, was there any experience that sort of set that example of giving back for you?
Yeah, I know you asked me. Yeah, I was reading over the stuff, and I thought, boy, was there? There really wasn't. I don't know why. I just have always wanted to help others, and I don't remember this at all. But my mother tells me, when I was a little kid, she would go out there, and the bus would come, and all the kids. The bus stop was near our house, and she remembered a time when all the kids ran to the bus, and one little kid fell, and the kids would all race who got the best seat on the bus, and I was always one of the fastest kids, so I was one. And but he said a little boy fell and started to cry, and she said, you stopped, and you were the only one, and you went back and you helped that little boy up, and then you wiped his tears, and you held his hand, and you walked him to the bus. And she said, I knew right then that was something that was inside of you that isn't other kids. And I don't think I think it was just God given to me that it's something I didn't develop or anything. It was just inside of me to help others.
Yeah. No, I definitely think that's the case for a lot of people, is that it's inside them. Many people had examples growing up. Some are various mixes of those things, but I really appreciate that. I think that story sort of exemplifies what you're up to these days, and we're going to get there shortly. But first, you mentioned playing college soccer. You went to Metropolitan State University here in Denver. What was that experience like?
So, Metro's a really good soccer program back then, and it was. My senior year in high school, I was recruited by a few places, but I broke my shoulder in my very first high school game of my senior year, so I missed almost the whole season, and really should have missed the whole season, but I lied to the coaches and said the doctors gave me clearance when they didn't, and did get to still play a little bit at the end of the season, but by then the calls had stopped. It was a lot different than it is today, and I was really hoping my dream was to go to DU, and because they had the hockey program there, and I'm like, I'll be a soccer player and get to know all these hockey players and be really fun. And so lo and behold, my dad phoned up Metro, and they were a really, really good team, and said, he called the coach, and he said, well, I'll give him a tryout, no guarantees. And I remember going out on that very first day, there were 120 guys. That wasn't the guys already on the team. That was just the tryouts. And I was looking around. I'm like, that guy was all state at Alameda. That guy over there was a Cherry Creek all stater. And I'm thinking, I have no chance out here. And each day they would cut it down and cut it down and cut it down. And lo and behold, after 2 weeks, I was still standing. And I remember I was really small. I was only probably 115, 120 pounds. And they had me go up one-on-one in a drill against their All-American sweeper. And I smoked him over and over and over again. And he was really mad. But I overheard, I was in earshot of the coach, one of the coaches, the assistant coach, who ended up being my head coach eventually, said to the head coach, that little guy's really good, but he's too small ever to play college soccer. And so that motivated me not to just go prove him wrong, but I knew I had to kind of change things and hit the weights and did some things, and ended up playing 4 years there. Yeah. And even Hall of Famer. So it was a pretty cool experience for me, and one that really changed my life. It allowed me to gain a lot of confidence to play. And really, by the way, during that time period, we beat DU as many times as we lost to them.
Nice.
So that was cool too.
That must have felt good. And what an experience to be able to play, a major college sport like that. I'm sure it really helped build a foundation for you as you eventually left school. Hall of Fame at Met State career is pretty incredible. And from there, though, I know you got your bachelor's in accounting, and then you spent about the first decade of your career in a couple different controller roles. Yeah.
Well, I started off kind of bounced around, and to get your CPA, you have to work 1 year public slave labor accounting. So I did that, and then went into just the private industry and worked for Georgia Pacific, and then a company called J.D. Edwards, which eventually became my Oracle role because it was through buyouts. But so I spent the vast majority of my career in the software industry, and those were fun roles. As a controller of they're regional, and you kind of ran that region of the country, and you're really running a business with the president. And so our offices would be right next to each other, and those guys that I did that with, I'm still really good friends with them to this day, because we had to be super tight when you're in those roles. But those were great. Those were good times. Yeah,
long hours, working a lot together. And you mentioned the company was purchased by Oracle, and you became finance director at Oracle, I believe, for 14 years.
Yeah, that was really kind of the end of it for there. And it was during that time period, that was a much bigger company. I would say I enjoyed it, but it wasn't the controller roles where you had a little bit more say and a little bit more were more fun. And those kind of shaped me a little bit more, because we used to do road shows, and that's kind of a lot of public speaking, which I do now. Those were really kind of shaped. I was actually, people laugh when I tell them that, but I was terrified to public speak. And Fred Gawan, who was the president of that region, and I was the controller, he would force me to do it. He came from like a theater background, and he's like, let's go do this, it's going to be so fun. And we would go to Dallas and Seattle and San Francisco and LA and Denver, and in the end, I got to the point where I was like, really get excited to get to do these, because we would make them fun and silly and different things, and I like, people would cheer and I'd get off on it and stuff. So it was those were actually more fun. The Oracle one was a little bit more of it's such a large company, and you're just this little piece of a giant thing. So I didn't really have the passion there, but it was still, it was a very good job. Yeah, don't get me wrong.
Well, as we know, you had about 7 years crossover from when you started Dawg Nation to when you eventually decided to leave Oracle. And you now, are the president, CEO of Dawg Nation Hockey Foundation, a 501c3, started in 2011. So for those listening, what is Dawg Nation?
So really was started back with that beer league hockey team, and we had tragedy on our team and challenges health-wise, where 3 of our 15 players all were diagnosed with cancer all at the same time. And I was captain of the team, and I would literally and figuratively take my hat off and pass it around the room, and we would go see one of those players in the hospital, and it wasn't that we gave Danny or Dave or Andy $250. It was the fact that they had someone that cared for them, and that was really the beginnings of it, and then we incredibly on that same team in that same year. A fourth guy got sick, and we thought, boy, another guy with cancer, but it wasn't. It was an autoimmune disease, and that guy that changed my life because it was really me. Jack was a college soccer player, not a hockey player. I was a college soccer player, not a hockey player. Jack coached kids soccer, I coached kids soccer. Jack had 3 daughters, no sons. I have 3 daughters, no sons. And Jack was a financial guy for Merrill Lynch, and I was a finance director. So it was literally when Jack got sick, it was looking in the mirror for me, because he seemed like he had everything. He was the most matching to me. And when 6 months after he was diagnosed, he passed, and changed my life, because I told those 3 girls that I want to do something in your dad's honor. I don't know what it is, but I want to do something and honor Jack at the same time as like serve this burning passion inside of me to help others. And never did I think it would become this, but it did.
Yeah. I mean, that story's always been moving to me. Playing on hockey teams myself, just imagining one guy getting a serious illness is tough to imagine, but to have not only 3 initially and then a 4th, it's really mind-boggling. And I've always seen Dawg Nation as the hockey community helping the hockey community in need. Hockey families helping people in hockey, and hockey in general is it's a very communal thing. I mean, maybe even more so than other sports. Like, it's just such a tight community, a small world, and for me it certainly has brought a lot of joy to my life. I've met some of my best friends through hockey, and it is an escape to be out on the ice and get a break from life. And so just the idea of having this organization molded around that has always really excited me, and I love how you've been able to leverage that deep community of hockey and turn it into really truly helping people.
Yeah, thank you, buddy. Yeah, no, it's cool, right? I mean, you and I both have seen it anyway, and then it's really just harnessed something that was already there. Yeah, is all it really is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so, you've long helped many people. Let's talk about why is it called Dawg Nation?
Yeah, you'll like that, because and I'm pretty sure you know the story, but it's I broke off and I wanted to make my own team. I was on another beer league team. I can't remember the name of the team, but I was like, it was not that great of a team, and it was just kind of there, and I thought I want to kind of do something on my own. And at the exact same time, a rink was being built literally outside my bedroom window, and I thought, so I went over there when it was in construction, came in, and I was the first team to sign up. What's your team name? I don't know. So I just put it down my name. And so then I went on Craigslist and started looking for uniforms, because I thought, well, I don't know how long this team's going to last and stuff. So I found a set of used uniforms with a bulldog on them. And I thought, well, let's just buy those. So we became the Junkyard Dogs at that point. And we kind of dropped the junkyard part and just kept the dogs. But the original team was because I'm a CPA and cheap and didn't want to spend a lot of money on jerseys. So in the end, we kind of kept that theme going of like, if we can get it for free, let's do it, because that means we can help a lot more people. Yeah, and what we still do. You know that because you're involved in us. Yeah,
I mean, that's a foundational belief that you guys push in Dawg Nation. You may as well be efficient with your dollars, because then you're going to be able to help people more. So I definitely appreciate that, and anybody looking to donate can certainly appreciate that, knowing that every dollar is going to good use.
Yeah, no, that's kind of where the name came from, and it kind of grew to Dogs, and then Dawg Nation, and now there's all kinds of other dogs teams out there, including one that you're on. Yeah,
I'm on the neighborhood dogs, and I know I've met salty dogs and old dogs, and I'm sure there's other ones as well.
Yeah, there are. Top dogs especially.
Oh yeah, the top dogs, and we'll get to them for sure. So you started Dawg Nation in 2011. Yeah. So we're about 12 years in. Really, really incredible. From the numbers that I had, you can update them if necessary, but you've given over $4 million in direct aid to families in need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're spot on that. I just pulled that this morning, and it's about 4.25 now as of the last Dawg Bowl that just happened a couple weeks ago. Thank you. And can't do that without volunteers and sponsors and participants and everyone else. You come to our events and it's almost mind-blowing, right? When you walk in and you're just like, oh my goodness. And all the auction stuff where the entire thing is donated from NHL players or organizations or local businesses, and that gets turned into dollars throughout the weekend. And so yeah, it's kind of mind-blowing when you step back and you think $4.2 million, it's a big number. And it right now, that's really ramped in the last few years. Last year was about 900,000, and we're probably right on par for that again this year.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I mean, incredible, not only the people that you've helped, but the organization you've built. And one of the things I always love seeing is the people that you help end up coming back to volunteer, which to me just speaks the largest volumes of the organization. And just to share with viewers, I'd love for them to understand some of the people that you've helped, the types of situations. Maybe you could tell them about Cody Beekman to start.
Yeah, Cody was one of our very first recipients. He was a young man. People didn't really know who Dawg Nation was at the time, and Cody was going to school up in northern Colorado at Greeley, and had a few drinks on this was in 2011. It was the year we started, and it was Halloween night, and he did what every parent wishes their kid would do, and chose to not drive, and called his buddy and said, come pick me up, we'll get my car tomorrow. And Cody got in the car, buckled up just like he'd want him to, and they made it all of 2 blocks and were broadsided, ironically, by a drunk driver. And Cody was basically quadriplegic after that. And I didn't know Cody. I didn't know anything about him, and met him in January at Craig Hospital a few months after that, and got to know him a little bit, and then talked to his parents, and this is kind of doing that whole same thing of like, we could take all this money and just pay for these companies to redo this guy's house. Because I looked at it the first time I met him, and they were 2 overwhelmed parents going, oh yeah, we're gonna Cody's home in 2 weeks. And I'm like, Cody can't even get in the door, never mind go to the bathroom or anything. And so my mind started spinning, and I through tax clients of mine and just networking, we were able to do that entire house with concrete pads and ramps, 2 different ramps, and hardwood floors, and literally redid it, put a bathroom where there was no bathroom before because it was a tri-level, so hard to get around this house. And all of that happened in 2 days. Wow. And it was 34 people that were, some of us like me, not knowing what we were doing, but we pair ourselves, as I mentioned earlier. My dad was a construction guy, so our team was me and my dad, and our role was to widen doors. And it was a tricky job. Like, it was a good thing I wasn't doing it, because the house would have fallen down, because we literally had to move the weight-bearing wall.
Wow. My
dad was able to do that and get to do that with them, and it was something I got to do with my dad. So really cool opportunities. But that's Cody, and Cody now, he goes to Metro State. He has his own podcast, and I mean, he has ups and down days, don't get me wrong, but it's he's still part of the nation, so that's cool.
Well, we'll make sure to link to Cody's podcast.
Yeah.
And would love for people to check that out. And the really cool aspect of that, I mean, obviously horrible what happened to him, but just to see everybody come together and sort of that same team energy that you have in the ice, that you have in the locker room, coming to someone's house and helping make it accessible for them. Yeah. So that one's
all
always...
at no cost, too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that one's always been really moving to me. I mean, you have so many families that you've helped, but another one that's, certainly was moving as I was getting engaged with Dawg Nation is the story of Dave Repsher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Dave was he was a Flight for Life nurse, and those are amazing people to start with. And on July 3rd, 2015, he was in a helicopter crash at St. Anthony's in Summit County, and went really just up 30, 50 feet in the air and at the hospital, came crashing down and was burned over 90% of his body. And literally no one had ever survived, at least in the state of Colorado, that severity of burns ever. And somehow, some way, Dave battled through 18 months in the hospital and walked out after 18 months. And incredible story. And now Dave has taken his second lease on life, and he actually saved the sport of hockey in Grand Junction and bought the rink in Grand Junction. Yeah. So there wouldn't even be hockey there if there wasn't a helicopter accident on July 3rd, 2015 that dominoed effect and created this. And Dave and Amanda are dear friends of mine that I talk to all the time, huge supporters of Dawg Nation at all our events and sponsoring almost every single one of them, and have been able to pay it forward and change a lot of lives.
Yeah, I mean, what a powerful story, and it's been rewarding to get to spend some time myself with Dave and Amanda, and just to see the mindset that they were able to have, and what Dawg Nation was able to do in terms of raising the money so that they could spend all the time on his recovery that they needed to. I just think was unbelievable, and definitely something that's kept me going and kept me involved. And that hockey community is always playing a role. If you're enjoying this episode, I would greatly appreciate if you could review, like, comment, or subscribe on your favorite platforms. Your engaged support goes a long way in helping the show grow and getting our impactful guests heard. Now back to the show. Let's talk about, if someone is in need of help, who qualifies, what do they do?
Yeah, usually this started in a beer league locker room, so our original, we kind of morphed a little bit, but it's pretty much stayed to those roots. Typically a teammate would nominate another teammate and rather than themselves, and our checks quite often, even today, it's hard to surprise people, but they were designed, but they still, we probably had our biggest surprise ever 2 weeks ago, and it was, so we still pull them off. But the whole idea is that people go onto our site and there's a tab called Apply for Assistance, and they tell the story, and they fill out as much as they can, and we have a recipient committee that meets every couple of weeks, and they review all the applications that have come in, on average 2 to 4 a week. So quite a few of those are coming in, and they'll review those and try and gather as much information as possible, and maybe some phone calls back, but it'll get assigned to someone. And then, like, if you were on that committee, you would then be assigned to talk to this guy's teammate and find out what was, and then the fun part of coming up with a really cool idea on how to present a check. So that's kind of how it's done.
And despite starting in the Denver area, you've now helped people all over the country, in Canada as well. And first, let's talk a little bit about the Humboldt Broncos. For those listening that aren't aware, there was a tragic bus accident years ago. I don't know if you have the specifics.
Yeah, it was April 6, 2018, and they were in the playoffs for the SJHL, which stands for the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, and down 3-1 and on the road and heading up, and kids had all dyed their hair and stuff, and they were ready to go, and the bus was hit by a semi that ran a stop sign, and of the 29 people on board, 16 perished, and of the 13 survivors, 2 were paralyzed, and 2 more had massive brain injuries, and everybody obviously on the bus had suffered from PTSD and different things like that, and since that accident, that really hit me very hard, and hit the whole community, hockey community, worldwide hockey community hard. But what's really interesting was a player that played on our top dogs, lived in Calgary, and was the coach of one of the kids that was paralyzed. That's how small a world this is. And 2 weeks after the accident happened, that young man named Ryan Straczynski said his hockey career wasn't over, he was going to become a sled player. That story came out when I was at the Disabled Fest watching sled hockey. And so the guy, Drew Coles, called me from up in Calgary, and he was at the hospital and told me this story, and I was able to get the U.S. national team players to all sign a stick. One of them donated his stick that he used in the Olympics, and they sent it to Ryan and said, don't give up. And I wrote a handwritten note in there and a picture, or sent a Dawg Nation hat, and really didn't expect to hear back. And next thing I know, he had posted on social media him wearing a dog hat in a hospital bed, and started from there.
Yeah.
We ended up bringing those now, of those 13 survivors, 11 of them have stayed at my house, so it's pretty cool. And I've stayed at their houses up there, and we've created this really, really unique and cool relationship that now includes an annual Dawg Nation scholarship fund to the Humboldt Broncos.
And our mutual friend who introduced us, Jared Bednar, the head coach of the Colorado Avalanche, former South Carolina Stingray, when I was growing up, he actually played for the Humboldt Broncos when he was younger. And can you talk a little bit about that relationship and how it's evolved through helping those guys?
Yeah, and I mean that is like, a lot of people don't realize that, but Jared Bednar introduced you and me, and that was over the phone at first, and then in person too. He was there, and it was during COVID, and he had to be all sneaky about it, so that's a whole other story. But Jared knew I was doing this stuff through the grapevine, and I didn't know Jared, but I knew Joe Sakic, and Joe gave my number to Jared, and Jared called me and introduced himself and thanked me for doing this stuff for Humboldt. And I didn't realize it, but I didn't know he was a Humboldt Bronco until that phone call. And we talked for a long time, that very first phone call. And he then shared with me that one of the young men that was, I'd been talking quite a bit to Ryan, and I was bringing Ryan here. And Jared said, there's another kid that was paralyzed in the accident. Would you consider bringing him as well? And I said, of course I would. Turned out it was the son of Jared's childhood lifelong friend, and his name was Jacob Wasserman. And so Jacob Wasserman was paralyzed as well, and I brought both of those young men down, and that created this bond with Jared that exists today, and actually ended up going all the way to the South Carolina Stingrays this summer. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, no, I was going to bring that up too. Just the hockey world is a small world, and so you ended up getting requests for assistance from my hometown, Charleston, South Carolina, home rink, Carolina Ice Palace, for a player in need there, and they found Dawg Nation. They
did, yeah. There was another kind of small world story. One of our players out here, Andrew Persy, his brother Mark Persy, has recently moved to Charleston and playing in the beer leagues there, and heard about it. And Mark, of course, knows me because he plays the Dawg Bowl. He said, do you guys ever go outside of Colorado? Of course. And I said, we do. Yeah, we're all the way up to Canada, like he just mentioned. And he said, well, there's this guy here in South Carolina. I think we can help him. And through your help and Jared's help and Mark's work in that community, within 1 week, incredibly, we were able to hand that family, because he was nearing the end, and we wanted to be able to do something. So we had time. It was of the essence on this one. And sure enough, we were able to go to his house, and the Carolina Stingrays went to his house, and a jersey was there for him and his family, and they stayed up all night listening to music. Not all night, but well into the night, listening to music and different things, and just some beautiful photos. And we're able to give him and his soon-to-be widow after that a really nice check. And that only happens when things like that rally, and it was really cool. Yeah. I mean, I just love the element of the hockey community and how its sort of generosity and communal nature can travel so far. And you guys put on tremendous events, everything from golf tournaments to cornhole tournaments to comedy nights, and many more. But your signature event is the Dawg Bowl. Let's hear about that. Yeah, that started when we first said, let's start a nonprofit, and it literally was a table like we're sitting at here, and a kitchen table, and my goalie, my left wing, right defenseman, all threw $100, literally threw $100 on the table. It looked like we were playing poker, and they looked at me and said, you're a CPA, figure out how to be a 501c3. And we then literally put a tournament on 3 months later. Wow. And it was that first tournament, believe it or not, raised $24,000, and it had some things in it were amazing. Like today, I don't even know what it would go for, but we had a game-used signed Alex Ovechkin helmet in that. Really amazing stuff happened right off the bat, and we were able to help 3 families at that, and that Dawg Bowl has just grown and grown and grown. And as far as now, it's really too big. We have to cap it pretty early, and it'll sell out within a couple of days. And this year, we thought originally, boy, if this thing made $100,000, it'd be pretty amazing. And last year, we thought, boy, it can't do much better than that, and it did $225,000. Wow. And that's from just donations throughout the weekend, the auction, the barbecues, all these different revenue streams, putting the you and I's business hat on, like where else can you monetize this, but also not take advantage of people, like make them feel good about it at the same time. And this year when we started tallying up the receipts, it was at right around $300,000 for a hockey tournament. I can't imagine there's many others in the whole nation that do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big tournament. It's just it's many day affair, and just the whole sort of vibe in the air when I've been is just really positive. You don't. Not all sporting events have that. Especially like when you go to youth hockey tournaments that are often
edgy.
And they have parents that are way too into it and stuff like that. So the great thing about going to a Dawg Nation tournament is just everyone's there for a good reason, to have some fun, to make some money for the cause. And I think the fact that you're able to provide this really great experience for the people participating while also raising all this money is just, it says a lot.
Yeah, and what we've done in the last few years, and we've had it for a while, but what makes me really proud is, and I did get a moment to talk to the NHL about this when I was down there in Nashville, and that was like their mantra is hockey is for everyone. And during our tournament, we kicked the tournament off with special hockey, which is kids and adults with special needs, and they played, and they are the happiest hockey players in the world. Some of them are pretty dang good players too. And we had kids sled hockey, and we had B-level sled hockey, and we had the very top players in the world playing, and in an A-level hockey game to see, so people can see that. And in addition to that, what people can't even believe that they have, but we even had blind hockey. Yeah. So that's all mixed in throughout the weekend, and at the same time you got regular world-class players there too.
And one of the coolest parts about that is people are then exposed to those things, knowing they exist, seeing the opportunities. I mean, I know many people have told me the first time they saw sled hockey was at the Dawg Bowl. And for those uninitiated, can you tell us what sled hockey is?
Yeah, so it's basically a sport. Hockey is for everyone, where the participants either have limited use of their legs, or don't have legs, or paralyzed, and allows them to still play. So they sit in a sled, and they propel themselves with not one hockey stick, but 2 shorter sticks with spikes on the end, and that allows them to travel around the rink. And honestly, the best players in the world are incredible. They can play with regular players, and they do. I put them on my teams when I play in tournaments, and I'm worse than they are for sure.
Yeah.
And but those are the best players in the world, and what we also want to make sure is that everyone can play, because some of the people that play sled hockey, they don't even have the cognitive ability or physical ability to propel themselves. So they have something called a pusher, and it has a handle behind their sleds, and someone actually takes them to the areas of the ice and they can still play. So it's a really powerful thing to see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And such an incredible sport, sled hockey, that's brought so much to so many. I mean, I've personally, mostly through you, have met veterans or people that have been through major traumas that didn't have the energy to go on, but then they found sled hockey.
Yeah.
We've talked about a few different things like that and people that we've met, and it's just incredible, the power of sport. I mean, I think especially team sport. And what that can do for someone that's just really had it tough, and providing them a chance to, quote, feel normal again.
Yeah, no, it's a great sport on that. And then same thing with the blind hockey, now that we've got to know those guys a lot too. It's and I take that a little bit further. So I actually played with those guys and wore glasses that put me on par with them. And it's eye-opening, I guess, so to speak, no pun intended, but it's pretty amazing to put yourself in their shoes, which I want to do. Yeah. And I have tried sled and been terrible at it, but honestly, my dream would be to have a place where you and I would be on a sled team.
Yeah. I like that idea, and I know our mutual friend Jerry Duvall has certainly invited me out. I need to take him up on that.
Yeah, you should.
And I've gotten the chance to meet some of these best players in the world, like Declan Farmer, Malik Jones, through you, and it's really been incredible to see them rally around what you're doing.
Yeah, no, they're incredible advocates for you and I in our sport, because none better really than Declan. He's the Wayne Gretzky of sled hockey, but he's perfect. He's articulate, and he's smart, and he's educated, and he's passionate and humble, and he checks literally every box.
We'll have to try to get him on the show soon.
Yeah, I would definitely put him on the show.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Well, thank you for giving us more details on the Dawg Bowl. And, I really wanted to congratulate you on recently being a finalist for the NHL's Willie O'Ree Community Hero Award. You were a finalist this year in 2023. You went to Nashville where they were doing the NHL awards and the draft, and you got to be sort of part of that. Can you tell me, more about that experience, how it came about?
Yeah, you have to be nominated so there's kind of a nomination process on the NHL website, and that opens up every January or so, and humbling that for the third straight year I had more nominations than anyone in the world. So that was pretty cool that people take the time to fill that out and tell how you've impacted, or Dawg Nation has impacted their world. To me, it wasn't my award; it was Dawg Nation's, and not that we won the award, but to get as far as we did, it was a team thing, because that's what we are, and so that's really what it was, and it reached all the way to the finals this year, and they did some cool stuff. The NHL came out and spent a whole day with me, which included a Avs Penguins game right at center ice with some of the people from the NHL, which was pretty neat. And then ended up in Nashville, and they put us up in the Grand Hyatt and had a great time there, and got to meet all kinds of players. But probably most powerful to me was sit down and not just take a picture, but literally sit down and have a conversation with Willie O'Ree.
Yeah, that's
and
incredible.
pretty neat thing, and quite an honor. And
for those listening that aren't familiar with Willie O'Ree, he was the first black player in the NHL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And he's 87 years old now, and he's still pretty sharp. And he was there and had a nice conversation. We talked a little bit about Peter McNabb, because Willie played for Peter's dad.
Yeah.
And so it was a good conversation, and same time for the hockey fan out there. Spent a little bit of time with Mark Messier and David Pasternak and quite a few other guys. So it was, as you would know, kind of a little jealousy going on there. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, you got to see some really cool people, some really cool stuff. It's kind of, post-season where the whole NHL kind of comes together around the awards and draft. So I'm sure that was a really fun experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was once.
And I know the NHL made a video about you when they were here, and I got to watch that online. We'll make sure to link to that as well, because it's a great video that gives you sort of a quick glimpse into Dawg Nation.
Yeah, no, thank you for doing that. That was fun when they came out and did that.
So, it's been 12 years. The organization has grown significantly. Have expanded your footprint across, the continent, really. What do you hope and envision for the future of Dawg Nation? Yeah,
the ultimate goal, and you and I have talked about this for honestly years, but it is a big, lofty goal, one that, I'm a positive guy, but it's going to be a tough one to do. But it's with guys like yourself and families throughout Colorado and the Avalanche and the rest of the NHL for that matter, it's possible, and it's to my ultimate goal. And if it doesn't happen, it's not like it's going to crush me by any means, but would love to build the world's first ever hockey rink, from the very first shovel in the ground that is designed for young and old, men and women, able-bodied, disabled, blind, sighted, veterans, civilians, literally a place where hockey is for everyone, and designed from the very beginning. And when I goal on that is to get a municipality involved, and general contractors and architects and civil engineers and mechanical engineers, all the way up from the ground up, and create this magical place that not only creates hockey is for everyone, but also creates a perpetual income stream that fits our mission of helping others. And so that's really, I mean, that's the ultimate goal. It sounds like that's like just a dream, but as you know, because you've been in these meetings, it's a lot further along than just a dream. And a lot of those things that I just mentioned actually have check marks by them already. But it's ideally that would be the perfect ending to this story.
Yeah, or the perfect next beginning, if you will, because I see so much growth for the organization once they are able to have that sort of continual revenue stream where you don't necessarily have to raise tons all the time, that you have this asset that funds it, and that it also brings people together from all over the hockey community, and I'm sure inspires people to do good in their communities as well. And I've really enjoyed working on the rink project with you. I mean, it's a really expensive project that we've been trying to raise money for in a really difficult economic time. But we've seen all the belief in it. We've seen all of the contractors that have signed up to help, and all of the various volunteers. We've seen all the plans. So it's further along than maybe it seems, but it's an expensive endeavor. Yeah, no,
it would be, as you know, I mean, you're just as passionate about it as I am, and have spoke as passionately about it in front of groups as I have, and I know you believe in it, and I know I believe in it, and I know there's lots of others, and we're not ready to throw in the towel on this thing yet.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm excited to see sort of where the next iteration of that project is, but I expect us to realize that dream at some point or another. Dawg Nation is just, it's really become a deep part, I feel like, in the Colorado hockey community. When Jared Bednar, when he introduced us a few years ago, I hadn't been playing that much. I've been playing a couple times a year, and it was kind of sad, and I was kind of sad about it, but it's hard when you move somewhere to really get back into the hockey community, and then, there's always excuses, you're busy, etc. But, I think hanging out with you guys really inspired me to get back in. Having my son inspired me to get back involved, and I know, within the next week or two that from us meeting, I went to play pond hockey with you, and that was, my first time on the ice since, at least before COVID, at that time. And since then, now I'm on the ice 2 to 4 times a week, and it just is it's a mental health, tool for me. It is fun. It's a community, and Dawg Nation has been a big part of that. I mean, my community in hockey in Colorado has been built, on a foundation of Dawg Nation. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and so I think that even people out there that don't understand hockey or aren't big hockey fans, I grew up in South Carolina being a hockey fan, so I always had to kind of fight my battles with the locals about whether it belonged or not, but there's no arguing that it brings people together. And so, I'm so glad that we were able to get introduced and work together. And, you through all of this, I mentioned that you had overlap with your work at Oracle over about 7 years. You still are a tax accountant as well for a variety of clients. And additionally, you're a youth soccer coach.
I was, all of that at the same time, and a father and a husband allegedly during that same time period. So, I look back at that, and I'm not really sure how I did all that. But that was a pretty busy few years there with no time off at all, but back in 2018. Really kind of had to make that decision. And at that point, Dawg Nation had given away $1 million, so you can see what kind of ramp we've had since then. And I thought, well, after that, I thought, well, maybe that was good enough. To say that you've given away $1 million in your lifetime is pretty neat, and just finish up my career at Oracle and cash in options and all that other stuff, and be good at, and that could be good. But instead, Cindy and I choose a little bit different path, but a much more rewarding one, and that was to try and change the world. And that's what we did in 2018, of January 2018, and now it's been 5 years, and our life couldn't be more fulfilled.
Yeah, it's awesome to hear that, and it you sort of exemplify some of what I do with the podcast in terms of highlighting innovators and social impact, because people don't understand that whatever it is you are passionate about, you can find ways to help people through it. So, just throwing someone the idea that there's a hockey organization helping people might seem weird, but then they learn. And, so whoever is listening, I hope they take inspiration from you, whether their passion is music or gardening or cooking or it's basketball, that they use what they are good at, what they care about, what they're passionate about to create positive experiences for others.
Yeah, you're spot on that, because I wouldn't have thought that this would have been that big. Like, I thought, well, we'll give away $5,000 or $10,000 a year and it'd be great. And I didn't realize how big the need was. Yeah. And so there probably is that same need with the tennis community, the cycling community, the cooking community, or whatever. You're going to have tragedy in all of those. And just taking really a passion and creating just this almost place where people can go to be able to gain strength and confidence, but also like hope. That's really the main thing of this thing, that you're not alone. And hence the amazing survivor game we do every year as part of the Dawg Bowl, where you are surrounded by people that are in the same situations, and some that have already come out of them. And when you think you have no hope at all, you've got someone sitting right next to you in your locker room that was in the same place as you 5 years ago, and they made it. And that's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've helped so many families over the years. We've talked about some of the specific people that you've helped. Is there any story of when you, maybe even first or just sometime, that you really saw like, wow, our work is really helping to change things?
I think they're just almost endless, because even this weekend, some of them are really small. Jan Hayda once said to me, he's an NHL player, of course, but he's huge part of Dawg Nation, and he said there was a grown man as big as me, and Jan's a big man, and he said we gave him a check for $2,000 and he just broke down. And he said it wasn't the $2,000, it was that he felt like he wasn't alone and he was cared for. And for me, that was Jan's moment, not per se mine, but it's a really good perspective on it, because I have those a lot. Like this weekend on Saturday, I was able to give a little boy his first pair of hockey skates through one of my connections, and I didn't pay for them, but I with a phone call, I was able to get hold of Center Ice Hockey and the owner there knows me really well, and said, let's do this, and be able to let Center Ice be part of that. And me be part of that, and the rest of Dawg Nation be part of that, and see that little boy's face when he got his first pair of skates. And he's a leukemia survivor. He didn't think he'd live, never mind play hockey again, or ever in his life. He's 8 years old, and the next picture he got from one of his moms was a picture of him in the back seat holding the box, and she said that you told him when he left he has to keep good care of him, so he didn't even want to put the box on the floor. Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
so that's definitely one of those moments. And you've done quite a bit over these years, some tremendous work. Has there been anyone through that process that's been a particularly impactful mentor for you?
I don't really think, I think there's been a lot of different mentors, and I've taken ideas from a lot of places, including you, and where I kind of get, oh, that was a neat idea what they did in South Carolina, what Jeffrey told me about. Oh, that was cool what they did down in Colorado Springs at this event. And I would kind of watch other people. Justin Goldman used to do this, the tournament's still around, but he ran it called the Quest for the Crown, and I would take ideas that he had at that, like he had a program, and he had me write something about my team in it, and I was like, well, that's a neat idea. It's really cool to flip up. And so I kind of took that program idea from that, and then someone else was doing fundraisers at one, and like a separate type of fundraiser with a contest. So I'm like, that's a neat idea. So I kind of would do that more than anything, rather than I would say a pure mentor, because a lot of stuff that Dawg Nation does, there's not really a roadmap.
Yeah.
And so it's where a lot of this is we've just kind of figured it out as we've gone along. And certain people will come to me, Bern Levesque, when he said, we should do a comedy night. How does that work? Well, let me introduce you to the guy who runs Comedy Works. Sure enough, he comes in, and we've been doing it for 13 years now.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So,
it's an easy cause to sign up for, especially when you get to see or meet any of the people that have benefited from the work.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to give every guest the opportunity to ask me a question.
Yeah.
People have asked many times why I've started the podcast. So if you want to avoid that question,
I'm
feel
going to
free.
avoid that. I saw that in the notes, and I thought I was... I go, yeah, I could see people that, but honestly, for me, this is a hockey podcast for me today, and so I think, like you've alluded to a little bit, but you are one of the most passionate hockey fans I know, and knowledgeable hockey fans I know, and South Carolina, and from a Polish background, and you'd think you would have been a soccer guy coming from Eastern Europe, and all this, but you're not. So, tell me how you got into hockey and why the passion for it.
Yeah, I think I was first introduced to hockey. I mean, I'd maybe seen the concept before, but when I was probably 5 or 6 years old, playing NHL 94 on Sega Genesis, playing the hockey video games, having a lot of fun with those. I mean, everybody that plays video games or did in those days knows that the hockey games were always fun. Even if you didn't like hockey, they were great. And then, minor league team came to town in Charleston around the same time. In the early 90s, 93, 94, the South Carolina Stingrays came to Charleston, and in their second year, my dad had the opportunity to become a minority owner in the team. And, the story goes, I don't know what actually happened exactly, but the story goes that he asked me what I thought of it. And, as a 6-year-old or whatever that was playing hockey video games, I was like, yeah, that sounds great. And because I guess I was interested and he had this cool opportunity, he decided to go for it. And starting in second grade, I went to pretty much every home game. And so what I've come to realize over my time and over these many years of seeing all different types of hockey and meeting all the people, I realized that going to all those games, I got to see everything that can possibly happen in a game, by going to these hundreds of games. Mm-hmm. And I got to sort of learn about the hockey community. I got to just be really deep in it. And then in 97, we opened a practice facility in Charleston because the Stingrays would have to travel 3 hours to Charlotte to practice if the Coliseum was in use.
Wow.
So that was the idea, and my dad's hope was to establish a family entertainment destination in addition to it being a practice facility. And so, I grew up in that rink. I worked at that rink from before it was open. I rollerbladed in the building when it was an empty home headquarters. And, I've gotten to see it through so much to the point where my business partner, Jeff Tyner, and I shot our own hockey movie there over a little over 2 weeks. And so it's just, it's just always been a huge part of my life. And I think it kind of emboldened me a little bit as a kid being a hockey fan and everyone around me for the most part not being one. I think I kind of liked being the outsider and having to explain hockey to people or having to defend it to people that were all about football in the South. And so I felt galvanized by it. And the thing about hockey that I've told a lot of people, and I told people when I recruited a high school hockey team at my little school that only had 3 hockey players, hockey is incredibly fun even if you're not good at it.
Yeah.
And I don't pretend to be great at it. I've played it a long time, really enjoy it, but just getting on the ice and the way you move, and it's just it's a whole different experience. And so that's, how I got that team filled is I got all the equipment donated and everything and just got them on the ice. I was like, just get on the ice, just try it. And that tends to hook people, as you know. And so, I loved following the NHL, whether it was in the newspaper back in the day or being able to look up the stats online. And, my dad used to call me the hockey encyclopedia. So I just always enjoyed it. I don't even, something about it is just hard to even explain. But the speed of it, I think, is a big part of it. It's able to keep my attention like not many other things.
Yeah. Well, you and that's only the tip of the iceberg, because you and I were similar as little kids, and you're the only one I think that I've ever met like this, but I was that way, where you would literally go to the rink early and study stats and things like that, right? And my version was I would listen to the transistor radio and like literally in my mind have like know what these guys looked like, even though I'd never seen them play.
Yep.
And to go to your first hockey game and see these heroes in your mind was really amazing. And for you to take that and literally build a high school team is pretty incredible. And then also to go to college and then work with all the way out, really kind of run a junior team from afar, right?
Yeah.
I mean, tell us about that, because that's pretty amazing too.
Yeah, no, yeah. We had a junior C and then eventually junior B team in Charleston running out of the Ice Palace. And I was just always been passionate about the Charleston hockey community. So I was able to run kind of the media and PR and help run the team from afar. It was almost like having a full-time hockey job in college. And, at the time I wanted to work in hockey. So it was a really cool experience. And, you mentioned getting those games early. I get, hour and a half early, read the stat package. And, for guys like Jared Bednar, now the coach of the Avalanche, I saw him as the fighter defenseman when I was growing up. And it's really cool to see his growth and how that sort of, is representative of a lot of the growth that I've seen in the hockey community in my years. And, there's not a lot of things that personally light me up as much as hockey does. And, there's just something about it.
No, I agree. And and you've turned it into quite a state of passion. So it's neat. Well, thanks for sharing all that. That was, and sharing with your guests too, because you talked to Jeff and you want to ask a hockey question. Just got to ask.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I would welcome more hockey questions from future guests.
Yeah.
I've just got a couple more for you. So aside from family, if everything were to end tomorrow, however you want to explain that, what are you either most proud of or most grateful for?
Well, probably grateful, just having a loving family. I mean, my best friend's my brother, and almost lost him to a heart attack a couple of years ago, and he skated this year's Survivor game with somebody else's heart in his chest, and pretty powerful and cool. And then now we got to meet that family, and I got to surprise my brother 2 weeks ago with that family at the Survivor game. And he had no idea I had 18 people coming.
Wow, that's amazing.
No one in the arena knew. So it was quite a surprise to pull that off. But just grateful for having a family that's supportive, especially my wife, that a lot of them, like January 2018, when I sat down with her, I mean, not a lot of spouses would say, you know what, give up a very high-paying job, lucrative, very safe job that really puts our family with no financial worries forever, and throw that away to follow a dream. There's not many people, I don't think, that would say do that and be okay with that, and she was. So incredibly lucky there, and she's, to this day, is a major part of Dawg Nation. Every event you'll see her in volunteering hours and hours and hours and hours. And I see that at home when it's midnight and she's working on she works 50 hours a week at a regular job, and it's midnight and she's making sure all the auction items are in. So that's probably what I'm most grateful for, because I don't think I could do it without. In fact, I know I couldn't. And then for memory, honestly, to just be remembered as a good person, and that you put others in front of yourself, because that's the example that you want your family to see. But I think it's the example that anybody would want, like that. And Dawg Nation's given me the opportunity to do that over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have this one big question I ask guests toward the end of every episode. If you could snap your fingers and fix one thing in the world, what would it be, and how do you think that change would reverberate?
Wow, that's the biggest, I think the worst trait that people have is jealousy. And I think it's the root of a lot of challenges in this world. And if you could get rid of that, I think there would be much more compassion for others, and not so much about yourself. And I remember way back when, and I was a competitive guy. I was a college athlete, and your job was to be a soccer player or whatever, and there was always 4 or 5 people wanting your job, especially if you were a starter. So there was jealousy there, and there was fight there. But I remember training with a guy named Paul Denning, and still a friend of mine today. And he played University of Southern Illinois D1 program, really good player. And we used to train in the off season together when he's in Colorado before he would go back. And it was just him and I. And I remember him telling me one day, and I've always remembered it, and every time I see him, we talk about it over beer. But he lives down in Arizona now, and it's there's enough success to go around.
Yeah.
And that came from a 19-year-old kid, and I was 20. I was 1 year older than him, and I thought,
yeah,
Paul's right. And Paul's become incredibly successful in his life, and he's really proud of me, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think there is enough success to go around.
Yeah. No, I really love that sentiment.
Yeah.
Because in this divisive world that we live in, like, people want to take things from others, and they want to, quote, win, in whether it's business or otherwise. And for me, it's always been about mutual benefit. Let's all have success. There's plenty of pie to go around, and so it's really good to hear how that influenced you over the years.
It did.
Yeah. So, I'm sure many people listening have enjoyed themselves and are inspired. How can people support you and your impact in Dawg Nation?
Yeah, I mean, lots of ways, but really best is just go to dawgnation.org. That's it, and we don't know how to spell there, so it's DAWG, and it's read some of the stories on there. Watch some of the videos on there. There's ways to volunteer. There's ways to donate. There's ways to sponsor. There's ways to participate, and we have a lot of events, whether they're mostly hockey related, but they're, as you mentioned, comedy. There's golf. There's even most recently mental awareness night, and where all of these are really important, and come to those and get moved, and don't have to donate by any means, but if you do, and you want a T-shirt that supports the cause. We grew this whole thing with no marketing budget, and it's all just out of kindness and people being moved, and that's really the best thing to do in my eyes, rather than force feed it and come and I'd be moved.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm sure people will be checking out the site and other opportunities, and thanks again so much for your time and for all the awesome work that you do, and look forward to continuing our conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Jeffrey. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for listening to this episode of People Are the Answer. If you enjoyed the episode, share it with friends, and reviews or subscriptions on your favorite platforms go a long way to help the show grow. I want to share these incredible people and their remarkable work with as many others as possible. Thanks for your support. For more, go to peoplearetheanswer.com.